Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. My name's Helen Tovey and I'm editor of Family Tree, and with me, as usual, is...
Nathan Ward. Hello there.
And we have a very special guest. Now, she is a long-time friend of Family Tree, and we are always really keen to work with her to learn more about using DNA for family history. And she is Michelle Leonard, DNA Detective of Genes and Genealogy. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Helen. Great to be here.
Well, it's so great to have you here because DNA is a topic like, watch Nathan. So Nathan's been doing family history for about 6 months, and his entry point to family history was a DNA test. And then he got a little bit scared and he hasn't actually gone back to his DNA. So we're going to kind of loop back in with him and his beginner journey at the end of the podcast. But for the minute, we're going to think about people who are already up and running using DNA with various levels of success. And we're going to have a think about some of those sticking points, some of those DNA brick walls. So, Michelle, you work, as well as genetic genealogy, you're a DNA family history tutor. You also help people, help clients, don't you, solve their research problems. So what are the kind of most common brick walls that you see people hitting up against when using DNA for family history again and again? Can you kind of think of an example just to give us, why would someone get stuck with DNA? Why isn't it this magic bullet?
But there's so many different ones. There's so many different ones. It isn't a magic bullet, and people sometimes they think it's going to be, and they think that it's just gonna throw up the answers. And occasionally, if you're really, 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 really lucky, it will. But most of the time, for most brick walls, for most research questions, it takes a lot of work. It's a slog. And you have to really put that work in, and you have to understand the kind of work you need to put in and the journey that you need to take to get to your answer. And oftentimes people don't know. They take the DNA test, they see this wall of names and CM numbers, and it's overwhelming, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to go with it. And they don't know how to go from what is this thing that I'm looking at on my DNA results, to, well, how does it tell me what I want to know, who my mystery grandfather is, or is this guy I've got in my tree the right great grandfather? Whatever their question is, they want to know how to get from that list of people to their answer. And sometimes there's not an easy way of translating that. Sometimes you need to learn how the DNA works first, and you need to learn the techniques before you can go from that A to, it's not even A to B, is it? It's probably A to G or something like that. But yeah, the kind of brick walls people come to me with are lots of unknown parentage, unknown ancestor mysteries. So that's what I kind of generally specialize in. So it will be, don't know who my father is, don't know who my maternal grandfather was. My mother's birth certificate from 1932 here, it's a blank. This man's not on there. Just her mother's name is. I'd love to know who that person is. So those are the very, very common ones. The recent unknown ancestor mysteries, the mystery fathers, the mystery grandfathers, occasionally mystery grandmothers, but more often than not, it's the males at those closer generations that we're looking for. And then, as we go back in time, it's mystery great grandparents and mystery second great grandparents and mystery third great grandparents. We always talk about unknown ancestors or mystery ancestors, people missing from our tree. We're building our tree, we're building that pedigree chart, and we're finding, oh, there's a blank there. We don't know who this person is, and we want to know who this person is. So we call that a mystery ancestor, but there's a point at which you start to think about that as a brick wall. It's always a brick wall. Even if it's an unknown father, that's a brick wall. But once we get back to second and third great grandparents, to the point where documentation starts to get more difficult to find, and it's not so much, oh, this person, we have the document and this person's missing from it. oftentimes it's, we just don't have the document for the next generation back, so we don't know who they were. So they could have been, a married couple, they could have been anything. We just don't know who they are, so they're a brick wall. And I don't tend to differentiate like that. I don't tend to think of, once we get to that point, it's a brick wall. And if it's something closer, it's a mystery ancestor. Because they're all mystery ancestors to me. Even if they're a missing set of third great grandparents because you can't find your second great grandparent's birth record, or because that birth record doesn't exist, or you can't find them on the census, or whatever your research issue might be, because we always come back to the genealogy side of it. There's always a research issue why we can't get our answer, whether it's someone missing on a 1930 birth certificate, or it's I can't find a birth record from 1795. It's still a research problem. The genealogy side of it is causing us an issue. We're not finding the documentation, but there's always that issue of, even if we have the documentation, the genetics might not match up to it. So some people have come to me with that issue, that they have spent decades working on their family tree. They have all this documentation, and then they do the DNA test and something's not adding up. And that's what we would call misattributed parentage events that people come across. I'm finding 0 matches to my paternal grandfather's line, things like that. What's going on here? And they're seeing these red flags, but they're not putting the picture together of, well, this person is on paper your ancestor, but in actuality, genetically, they're probably not, if you're not finding those matches. And you're finding a whole bunch of matches to something else that's confusing you. Those are those 2 big red flags for what we call an MPE. So that's a brick wall too. Once you recognize you've got one of those, you've got a brick wall, you've got a mystery ancestor, and you want to solve that question. So people come to me with, that wild gamut of from mystery parent out to mystery third great grandparent. And then I've taken a DNA test and I've found there's something off. Help me. And those are the absolute basics of, what you're going to find with brick walls. But everybody has them. Everybody wants to solve them. And DNA can help with so many of them. We just have to remember that it's easier to use when your brick wall, your mystery ancestor, is a closer generation to the DNA tester. The further back we get in time, the more generations away we get, the less DNA we have from those ancestors, the harder it becomes to use DNA to get to those answers. And it's not a panacea. We can't just take a test and it's going to spit the answer out at us. We have to work with it. And sometimes we have to put a lot of work into it.
I think, Nathan, what do you think about hearing more? I think that's probably, you'd relate to that a lot. You could see you're building your family tree. So Nathan took his DNA test. In the meantime, he started building his family tree, and I was giving him all that best practice advice, Michelle, I've learned off you, like all your things of building up your tree really wide. You should see Nathan's tree. It's just super, super wide. He's like, every single person he finds all of their siblings. It's the most fantastic DNA tree.
Yay! Collateral lines for the win.
Exactly. Nathan doesn't quite know yet how cool they're going to be when he gets back to his DNA test, do you, Nathan? But you're brainwashed in like, that's what's gonna be the golden ticket.
I'm just overwhelming myself with names and numbers. It's getting ever wider and no further back at the moment. So,
but when you do decide to go back to your DNA test results, then they're going to be really helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you say so.
It's using it as a reference. So you might, when you're doing it, I always say, the best reference you can use with your DNA test results is as robust a family tree as you can put together. So that starts from building back your pedigree, your direct ancestors, as far as you can get them, and then working on those collateral lines, as we call them, the brothers and sisters of your ancestors, and building forward their lines to the present day. Because when we see our DNA matches on our match list, those are the people that are going to end up being there, the descendants of all of these different collateral lines, direct ancestors and collateral lines. And so if we've already done the work on those lines, and then that person pops up in our DNA results, if we've already got, say, their parent on our tree or their grandparent, it's much easier for us to identify them and fit them in and work out our connection to them. So that robust tree as a reference is just so useful. I can't overstate its usefulness. But some people can't build that robust tree. When you've got a missing 50% or a missing 25%, then you have to rely on working with the DNA to get to those answers. So while I'm always advocating for that robust tree as far as you can take it, if you're sitting there going, I can't build that, I have all these mystery people, don't fret. You can still get your answers through the DNA. It's just that for those who don't have those issues, why not have that robust reference to use with your DNA results?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, playing it out that way. Because I feel like I don't really have a question yet with DNA, but saying like working out these side shoots back to the future, is that right? Yeah, back to the future, to present day, should I say?
Yeah, present day, yeah.
Sorry, too much film watching. Yeah, I can see now how that would link to my tree, to the DNA matches, because obviously they are modern day real people.
Yeah, I mean, let's say if you don't know who your second great grandparents are, and a third cousin of yours tests, and they pop up on your match list, but you don't recognize their name, you don't recognize anything on their tree because you don't have your tree back to your second great grandparents. So even though you both of you have the same set of second great grandparents, you're not gonna make the connection unless you've built your tree back to that point and you know who your second great grandparents are, so that when you open up their tree when you're looking at your match with them, oh, wait a minute, I recognize those people that are on their tree. That's my second great grandparents. So if it's theirs, then we're third cousins. So doing that work gives you an advantage when you're looking at your matches, because you're going to be able to identify so many more of them and turn them into verifiable matches that you can then use to try and work out other matches. It's like a domino effect. If you can then, once you know who that third cousin is, you can look at your shared matches with them and go, well, all of these people on this list, or most of them, probably relate to me through that same set of second great grandparents in some way. They might be closer relatives or they might be more distant, but they're going to be on that line in some way to me. And that narrows down what you need to do to identify how you relate to them. But when you don't have a question, when you're just, I call it going on a fishing trip with DNA. So you're doing your family history, you're building your tree, but you don't have a specific mystery to solve. The key thing you want to do in that instance is verify that your genealogy, that your genealogical family tree matches up with the genetics, with the DNA. So you want to find matches that will confirm you have received DNA, you've inherited DNA from your great grandparents and your second great grandparents, to have that added proof that your tree, your documentary tree, is accurate to your genetics, that they match up with each other. And some people will find that they do. I've found that I have DNA from all of my great grandparents, all of my second great grandparents. I don't have an MPE at any of those levels. I can be confident that all of those people I have in my tree belong there, not just on paper, but via DNA. But many other people are going to find, you know what, I can't find anything to this person or anything to that person. And maybe they do have a misattributed parentage event that they've come across. That doesn't mean to say that that person on paper isn't accurate and that they didn't do a good job building their family tree. It just means that genetically they didn't get DNA from that person. And it's interesting to find out, if you can, well, where did the DNA come from? Who was the genetic great grandfather instead? So there's a couple of different ways that using DNA can go. And some people want to know that and some people don't. Some people would rather not know if they've got a misattributed parentage event in their tree. And that's a really personal thing to decide on at the end of the day. But being able to use DNA to verify your tree, I think, is one of the best things for us family historians who've been working with records for years and years and years, and building our tree and getting attached to these people, to be able to then have that gold dust confirmation that we inherited DNA from them, that we share DNA with cousins who came from the same people, I think is just fabulous and really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really good actually. I do like to have like reassurances and feel confident in what I'm doing. So anything that can back that up is brilliant. Because obviously you can do it with the records to a degree, but if you've got the science behind it as well, that's going to be extra cool.
Yeah, it just really adds that extra layer of evidence to your tree. And now that we have DNA, I feel it's essential that we make use of it as that extra tool in our toolbox. But I constantly say you can't work with DNA alone. It has to be combined with traditional research. It's the combination of the two that really bring it together. And DNA alone isn't going to get you answers, isn't going to verify anything. It's combining it with the records and the learning how to research properly that gets you the most out of both.
And if I sort of like look at my DNA matches and I find somebody that matches with me and they've got some people on the tree, I feel like I'm stating the obvious now, but I shouldn't take it as for granted that everything that they've put on their tree is correct, should I? I should also be going through all that stuff as well.
Absolutely not. No, you always want to verify that they haven't made mistakes, because mistakes in online trees are very, very common. So there are techniques, of course, that I teach to help people with this. But yeah, definitely don't just look at a mattress tree and take it for granted that it's all accurate. We always want to do our own due diligence on these things. If this is a really good match, then it's worth the time and the effort to build your own version and make sure that they haven't gone wrong somewhere. However, if you look at their tree and you see something that's also on your tree, the chances of them having made a mistake at that point are pretty slim. So it shouldn't take a huge amount to do a bit of quick due diligence going back on just their direct line to the known ancestors that you can see that you share with each other. It's when there's nothing on their tree that matches to anything on your tree that the red flags might start going off in your head as to could they have gone wrong somewhere, especially if it's a higher match. If it's a small match, then there's every chance you're not going to find a connection because it's too far back in time. But if it's a better match and you can't connect the dots, then it's really important to be proactive, to build your own version of their tree and try and see if they could have gone wrong somewhere.
It just sounds good. It's terrifying, but it all sounds really good.
It can be overwhelming when you're starting out. So it's really important just to do the basics well and not get too ahead of yourself, not try to do too many things all at once. Because then it just can sort of overwhelm you. But start small basically and push on from there. But take one match at a time, that kind of thing. And yeah, but it's fun. So it's not something to get too terrified about, hopefully, for most people.
Michelle, just kind of thinking of Nathan at the point of, potentially the next few weeks or months or however long when he does go and visit his DNA test results, then can you kind of speak a bit? Because it's just great. Sorry, it's a podcast, everyone, but I can see Nathan's face with Michelle explaining it. He's making so much more progress than the billion times I've tried to explain DNA to him. So I want to capture your good knowledge here, Michelle, while you're here. Can you give Nathan a flavour of when we talk about grouping and clustering? Like, so he's got a great big match. He knows about the famous coloured dots or icons or whatever. So can you kind of say, not really in well, a little bit about how he's going to do this, but also why he's doing it? What is this doing? What is the clustering going to do for him?
So doing clustering of any kind, whether it's manual or automated, it's basically taking matches that all share DNA with each other and putting them together in a group so that you can then focus in on that smaller section, that smaller set of matches. and hopefully find a connection between these people. Because if they're all sharing DNA with each other in some way, and with you, of course, then likely you all share the same connection on a particular line. So when we're clustering, we're hoping to take that group of matches to this set of second great grandparents and put them together, and another group of matches for a different set of second great grandparents and pull them together. And if we're trying to solve a mystery, this is even more useful, because if we're working match by match within a small group that we know all relate to each other in some way, then we have a much higher chance of finding a connection between them, rather than if we were doing something much more random of going down the match list just one by one and working on each match at a time. The first match we work on could relate to one part of our tree, and the next match could relate to a completely different part of our tree. And of course, we're going to keep up at that, and we might not find any connections for a while, because we could be looking at matches that don't connect with each other. So if we do the clustering first, then we focus in group by group, cluster by cluster, then we know that we should ideally be finding connections between the matches that we're working on at that particular time. So it's focusing our attention in the right areas, basically, so that we're not haphazard, so that we're more organized, so that we've got a better chance of being successful in finding connections. We always want to, when we're looking at matches and building out trees for matches, is find exactly the same set of common ancestors somewhere in both those trees. That's our ideal. If we take two matches that are in a cluster and we build out their trees and they share a decent amount, and we're hoping to find something at maybe the second to third great grandparent level, if we get back to their second and third great grandparents and we see exactly the same couple on both trees somewhere, then that's our success. We've got something. We now know that's the line we need to focus in on for this cluster. Somewhere within that couple, whether it's them, whether it's their parents, whether it's set of their siblings, something within that family line is the connection to us. And therefore, we can then run with that and keep working on the other matches and try to use that narrowed information to get to our answer. So it's all about organization. The clustering part should be fun and easy, and it shouldn't take a lot of time. We shouldn't be spending days and days and days with these colored dots or squares. It's just a means to an end. It's something we want to do so that we can then have that group of matches to work on, and then we get to our genealogy part, we get to our tree building and trying to find our connections. Does that explain it and in a kind of layman term enough without all the kind of technical side of it?
I think so, yeah. I'm still a little bit confused about how the clustering aspect begins.
So it begins with those kinds of matches that I was talking to you about before. Like, you're looking at your match list and you find a third cousin, and you can identify that person as a third cousin. Okay, I can see on my tree and your tree that we have the same second great grandparents, but your great grandparent and my great grandparent were siblings. That's a third cousin. So then we can take that third cousin, that known match, that verified match, that person who we know their relationship with, and we can use them as what I call a base match for creating a cluster. So that person, we share an MRCA, a most recent common ancestor, with them, and that's that set of second great grandparents that we both go back to. That's our ancestors that we share in common. That's where the DNA that we share with that person is coming from. And therefore, all of the shared matches with that DNA, or the vast majority of them anyway, should also somehow be coming from those second great grandparents or their ancestors. So we use our third cousin as our base match to create our cluster. That's our origin. That's our starting point for the cluster. We give them this color. So let's say a set of my second great grandparents is Thomas Kelly and Anne Jane McMaster. So I've found a third cousin who I descend from their daughter Bridget. My third cousin descends from their daughter Sarah. So the DNA I share with my third cousin is going back to Thomas and Anne Jane. So I might create a group and I might call it Kelly McMaster. Or I could call it Thomas and Anne Jane, but I probably would go with the surnames and call it Kelly McMaster. And once I've created the group, I'm going to put my third cousin in it. I'm going to add that color that I've chosen for Kelly McMaster, and I'm going to put my third cousin in that group. Then I'm going to go to my third cousin's shared matches, and I'm going to add all of them into the same group. I'm going to give them that color. And so now I have a group, a Kelly McMaster group that I can filter down to. So I click on my filters, I click on that group, and I can now just see everyone I've placed in that group from what I've used my third cousin to gather these people together. And now I can work on these people and I can try and find my connection to them. Now, from this standpoint, I already know I'm looking for a Kelly connection or a McMaster connection, or I'm looking for someone who's another descendant of that couple. But I know I've narrowed it right down to these matches should go back to that really small portion of my tree. And therefore, whenever I look at their trees, I'm looking for the locations for my Kelly McMaster ancestors. I'm looking for those surnames, or I'm looking for anything that points me in that direction. And a lot of the time, I'm going to have to build out their trees further myself to find the connection too. But that's the whole ethos of clustering, is being able to narrow things down and being able to focus in on a particular aspect of your tree. And oftentimes we have a great interest in one particular aspect of our tree, and we want to potentially solve something further back in time, or we want to know more about this great-grandparent or second great-grandparent. So we might want to create a cluster for that particular part, just so we can maybe find out more through our DNA matches.
I can see you, Nathan, wanting to create a cluster for George Horatio Nelson and find out about that branch and who are the other descendants and relations of him, because that's kind of your favourite ancestor at the moment, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Anything I can get on him, I'll take. So that'll be cool. So if I created one for him, Ancestry would, if I'm using Ancestry, would naturally pull my DNA matches that it's already made to the linked people. Is that right?
So it wouldn't at the moment, although they do have a automated clustering tool in the works that's going to be rolled out. But at the moment, you would have to manually create it. So you would first need to find another descendant of George Horatio Nelson and his wife, someone who descends from a different child of his to the one you descend from. And then you could use that person and their shared matches, and you would manually create the group and just add all those people into that group.
Okay, so it involves like looking at other people's trees a little bit and finding
Yeah.
the person and then bringing them together.
And of course, we have clue tools on some of the sites as well. So if you're working on Ancestry, the first thing to do is go and have a look at through lines under the Ancestor tab and see, go to George Horatio Nelson and see, has Ancestry found other descendants of his that have tested and added a tree? And it may well have. So always have a look at through lines. It's a good clue tool. It's not always going to be accurate. We do need to check it out for ourselves, but it's a great place to start when you're trying to find a match that you can use to create a cluster.
Cool. I'll give that a go then, definitely.
Oh, it's Michelle, it's so good to see Nathan looking so much happier about DNA. So this is really, really good. So this is kind of a bit of a jumble conversation, because there's two really cool things that we're going to be doing with Michelle, one of which is very, very imminent, and it's a masterclass in helping to work on your DNA brick walls. And so, as Michelle outlined at the beginning, there's so many reasons why any and all of us have brick walls in our family history research, and also going hand in hand in that with our DNA research as well. And so Michelle's been outlining some of the kind of really practical things that we can do, and those practical strategies are great, aren't they, for being equipped with a good range of knowledge of the steps you can take to help solve our brick walls. But then later in the year, in the autumn, Michelle is going to be back with her famous DNA Bootcamp. And this is something that we've run with Michelle now for, I think, since early 2021. We started it in lockdown, didn't we? And it has just grown. And it's an absolutely fabulous, immersive online DNA course. And this year it's going to be bigger than better than ever, because Michelle provides us with so many wonderful tasks to do and really hands-on learning activities. We've decided to build it out, to build in a bit of extra time so people can really kind of immerse themselves in each task and tactic that Michelle's going to be teaching us to use in our DNA research. So it's going to be with 8 sessions, and they're going to be 2 weeks apart. So you're going to start at the beginning of September, on the 4th of September, and then every fortnight through the autumn till the 11th of December, we're going to be having online DNA learning sessions. And in those sessions, Michelle is going to be taking anyone. So it could be you, Nathan, it could be me. So I've had a few years DNA practice, but I'm not very good at DNA. And I could definitely get more out of my DNA test results. And you're at the beginning of your DNA journey. For both of us, Michelle builds us strong foundations and then sets us up and running like clockwork machines with a set of strategies and tactics and things so we can actually use our DNA. So Michelle, do you want to talk to us a bit about the sort of things that people might learn on the DNA Bootcamp, and also outline a bit more maybe the sort of person you think the DNA Bootcamp might appeal to?
Well, in terms of the kind of person it would appeal to, I think it should appeal to anyone who wants to do more with their DNA. I think that it's essential to already have a DNA test. It's essential to have an ancestry test before taking the boot camp, but it's also good to be in the other databases as well. But you don't need to have any in-depth prior knowledge of how DNA works or how to work with your DNA matches or anything like that before you take the boot camp. You can be a complete beginner just so long as you have the test so that you can do the hands-on work, because it is a very, very practical course, the boot camp. I'm a big advocate of learning through doing, learning by being hands-on, by actually doing what I'm talking about. So there'll be, long sessions where I'm going to be throwing huge amounts of information at people. And I always tell them that this is all recorded, break it down, watch it in bite-sized chunks, stop me talking, pause me, shut me up, and go and do it. Do what I'm showing you, because I will be giving you step by step by step. Click here, go here, do this, try this. Shut me up and go and actually do it yourself, and then come back to me. Take it in chunks. And this time we're giving you more time than we ever have before to take your time with the hands-on side of it. And that's the time where people have their eureka moments. You can listen to me blather on and on and on and on and on about how you do something, but until you sit there and you try it yourself, I just don't feel you get that moment where I really get this. This really works. I see now. And that's the moment I want everybody that takes my DNA bootcamp to have. And I want them to have many of those moments throughout the bootcamp, not just one or two. And so there are multiple tasks through every bootcamp session, and they are optional. You don't need to do them. You don't need to do them all. They are completely optional, but I strongly, strongly encourage everyone who takes the bootcamp to immerse themselves in the tasks, to really give it a go. Even if you think, I know how to do this, just give it a go, do it again. The more practice that you have with your own DNA results, or your parents or your siblings or whoever's DNA results you're working with, the better you're going to get with it. We will work through everything from getting your results to what do you do with your DNA match lists? What do these DNA match lists actually tell you? What do all these things mean? What are shared match lists? Key power tool. How do we work with them? How do we do this organizing? How do we do this clustering that I've just been talking about? We will go in-depth practical demonstrations of how all the different techniques that we need in order to get the most out of our DNA results. And so I'm not going to go into everything because there's so many different things that are included in there. But the takeaway should be that it is a really practical course, and you're going to get really hands-on with your DNA results, and hopefully you're going to have some breakthroughs by the end of it.
Definitely. Thank you, Michelle. From previous versions of the bootcamp that we've done, then over the weeks, we do always get people emailing in saying they can't believe they've discovered X, Y, or Z, and things make sense. And as with anything with family history, having those practical steps to take, having a bit of a strategy can help us stop feeling that we're just out on a limb wondering what on earth to do next. We've got some practical things we can do. If we do them, they do actually work. It's incredible. So we're really, really looking forward to both Michelle's masterclass and her bootcamp. And I know Nathan's going to love them as well, like you, Nathan.
Yeah, it sounds really good. I need some sort of direction, and like I like to know that I'm doing things right. And if I don't think I'm doing it right, I'm scared to do it. So being guided on that journey sounds brilliant.
It's one of those things where I'm always telling people throughout, boot camps and masterclasses to just try, because there is a lot of fear of getting it wrong. And I always say that, if we look back at when we were children, there was not that much fear of getting things wrong. We just dived in and did things, didn't we? And as adults, we're scared of being wrong. We're scared of getting something wrong. But if we don't know how to do something, then the only way is to learn and to try. And we probably are going to get things wrong. I know I got things wrong when I started working with my DNA results way back in the, mists of time now. But everybody gets things wrong. It's about being then able to recognize I've gone wrong here. And things like clustering, we have 64 groups on Ancestry, for instance, that we can create, and we can delete them in half a second if we think we've gone wrong. So it's all about, don't be scared to try it. Don't be scared of getting it wrong, because if you think you've gone wrong, delete and start again. Try again. There's no problem with that. And I'm always telling people to, rewatch what I say. Don't just watch it once and try it once and leave it there. Go back and rewatch and redo it. The more times you redo things with DNA, the more ingrained the best practices become in you. And I completely understand the fear of getting it wrong. But you're going to get it right so much more often if you go through that process of getting it wrong and practicing and getting better at it.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds really good. Thanks so much for your time, Michelle, and all those ideas of things to do and things to look forward to. Yeah, it's really, really good news. Okay, take care then, everyone. Thanks for listening.